Hello, my friends. I'm Nick Lowry, host of the Comeback Journey podcast. For my entire life, I was trapped in a cycle of unhealthy relationships. Family, friends, lovers, all of it. Couple that with almost a decade of active drug and alcohol addiction, and that makes for quite a toxic combination. A few years ago, I decided to look inward, and what I found was that by healing, growing, and improving the relationship I have with myself, I was able to improve every other relationship in my life. It all started with me. My mission with this podcast is to empower you to cultivate healthy relationships, both with yourself and others, so you can experience a more meaningful and satisfying life. All right, my friends, welcome back to the Comeback Journey podcast. Special guest today, my good friend Matthias Eriksson. He is the creator of Eriksson Unlimited. He is a lifestyle and transformation coach who helps you improve your body, confidence, and self-image by optimizing your lifestyle and mindset. I'm super excited to have him here. He's been on the podcast once before, months ago, and we're doing round two. And I'm excited that he's here to dive into this new direction that the podcast is taking. And I think this conversation is going to provide a lot of value for anyone listening. So Matthias, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for bringing me back, Nick. Had a blast last time.
Yeah, it's always good, man. It's always good when we talk. Great conversations. So why don't you, for any new listeners and anyone who hasn't heard your previous podcast through the Comeback Journey, you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, like your past and what led you to the journey that you're on now, which is essentially helping people improve the quality of their lives.
Yeah, for sure. And it mainly started out because for the vast majority of my life, I haven't had that health. I haven't really had the quality of life that I wanted to. And I was really struggling with insecurities and my self-confidence, mainly because for the vast majority of my life, I've been struggling with obesity and lack of confidence. So I was 243 pounds at my heaviest. I was obese from pretty much when I was a child until I was 18 years old, and I was really struggling with I was struggling to fit in because I was pretty shy, very insecure about my looks, my weight. So I was definitely struggling in the women with the women when I was younger, and all of those insecurities, they really was the catalyst for my change, because all throughout this time I was struggling, as I was isolating myself in my room, playing video games, consuming fast food. I always felt like there had to be so much more to life than this. So at a certain point, I couldn't ignore that feeling anymore. And if I'm being honest, I procrastinated on that feeling for multiple years, man. But when I actually got started, I started out pretty easy by taking walks and cutting out soda from my diet, and I lost about 45 pounds from that, which was
Wow.
halfway down to a healthy weight. And
Just from those two things.
Yeah, exactly. So I took between 4 to 7 walks each week for about 1 hour, and cut out soda from my diet, and that's really got me started, and I started feeling so much better about myself. Started feeling a little bit hopeful about the future, and then I kind of hit my first plateau, and thankfully it didn't last that long, because at my job I had a coworker that was a bodybuilding enthusiast, and when I talked to him, he offered to put me on a meal plan and the training program, and I was like, yeah, sure, because he looked great. He was basically able to deadlift, I think it was 800 pounds or something like that. So he definitely knew what he was talking about, and I was pretty blown away by the results because when he put me on that meal plan and the training program, I used to follow that rigorously, and it didn't really take long, and I think it was like 6 or 8 months after that, I was down to a healthy weight. I'd replaced some of the fat with muscle, and I just started feeling so good about myself. And like for the first time in my life, I was down to a healthy weight, started to experience some confidence, and then that feeling just really started shining over into all aspects of my life. And shortly after that, I just realized that I wanted to start my business and help people make that same transformation.
That's amazing. There's one thing that I wanna point out. Like if we're reading between the lines here, you lost the initial amount of weight on your own just by making a few small changes. So
Yeah,
these like two seemingly like if you ask the average person, and I don't like to assume, but like in this scenario, I would assume that if you asked random people if who are significantly overweight, if all they did was take a walk every day and stop drinking soda, that they would lose a significant amount of weight. I think a lot of people would say that you're crazy and that that wouldn't work. And
yeah,
there's like that concept can be applied to every aspect of life. All you have to do is make a couple small changes and you can see significant results in whatever area you're trying to improve in your life. So it's incredible that you are like living proof of that, because I think that's a concept that eludes many people, where they can't grasp the significance of just a few small changes to your lifestyle in whatever area, and you can see incredible shifts.
yeah, for sure. Like there's so much power in the basics, whether it's weight loss or like personal developments or building your business, whatever it might be. There's significant power in just nailing those things. And I should probably add the fact that I think it was 8 months for me. So during 8 months, I was taking a walk like 4 to 7 times each day and cut out soda. So that's quite some time. And I really think that's where people go wrong as well, that they're looking for the quick fix or the short term solution. And they kind of sabotage their results in the long run by looking for these medical fixes that don't really exist, sadly. So
Hmm.
I sadly think there's a lot of people in the industry that are also like making it way more complicated than it has to be, and a lot of people want to sell their products as the solutions, and I think that causes a lot of misconception, thinking that that it has to be way more complicated than it actually is in reality.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's like with these days with the internet and social media, there's unlimited amounts of information. You can learn anything you want, but there's also it's diluted by people trying to sell other people on, as you said, like a quick fix that they might see like short-term results, but most likely they're going to bounce back to where they were before, or in an even worse situation.
Yeah, exactly. That's certainly very common when it comes to weight loss, and I have experienced that personally because the first time I lost weight, I lost like maybe 60 pounds or something like that, and then I regained 90 pounds total, and that really sabotages your confidence, and it's very it's very easy to like look for these short term solutions, but one thing that I always do my best to preach and kind of instill in people is just like the sustainability and the long term thinking, because
Mm.
in a couple of years from now, you're not going to care if it took you multiple years or if it took you an entire year to lose all that weight. You're going to be happy that you did it in a sustainable way, so you actually can maintain those results in the long run.
That's a really good point. I love that attitude of sustainability, where it's, you don't want to, like, there's a way to go about creating change, as you said, like with weight loss, for the example, there's a way to go about it that you don't have to completely starve yourself. Like, there's that middle ground, right, where you don't hate life, but you're uncomfortable enough to see change, but not so uncomfortable that you can't keep it up in the long term.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing that I really do my best to preach, and that is just like focusing on sustainability, not perfection, because that's another thing where people really go wrong, is that they're usually trying to be too strict. They're trying to do too much in a short amount of time, rather than just like making sure that they're doing these like incremental improvements each day, because they really add up. And that's what frustrates a lot of people, because in the beginning, like the first couple of weeks, not much is going to change, but if you keep this up, it's going to compound in the long run. And as the months go by, you'll just keep getting impressed by yourself and the changes that you're making.
The compound effect coming
Yeah,
into play.
applies to many aspects of life.
Yeah, very true. So you've mentioned like your physical transformation, the weight that you've lost. You then, started a business in this industry because of the impact you saw it had on you, and you want to create impact with others in this area who are struggling, because you understand the struggle, you've been through it. Beyond the physical work that you had to do, what kind of inner work was necessary for you to get where you're at?
So I think it is like I think it comes down to the fact that I personally got started, like I said, because of insecurities, because of lack of confidence, because I wanted to achieve a healthy weight, and then I had the goal of achieving a six-pack. So these are very like physical things, and quite shallow, to be honest. And that's really what got me started. But as I progressed on my journey, I realized that these are not really the solutions to my to being happy. These are not the solution to my insecurities. And as I realized that, I kind of like started going inwards in myself. So it's obviously a journey that I'm still on to this very day, but many aspects that has like helped me out is just like finding these small nuggets here and there. So for example, I have picked up the habit of meditation. I have picked up the habit of journaling, and all of these things has just like exposed aspects of my inner self, or like my inner world. And that, along with my mindset, is just something that I keep working on, because that's what I find most fulfilling and actually brings me the most amount of progress, which is something I very much enjoy. So I'm always searching for ways to kind of expose myself and challenge myself, because I feel like those situations really bring out that sorry, I kind of lost.
That's all right. That's all right.
What was your question?
Well, you pretty much answered it. It was like, what kind of inner work did you have to do in addition to the physical to get where you're at? And so you mentioned like two very significant ones: meditation and journaling. And those two things also have had a profound effect on my ability to progress in many aspects of life. And this is, I didn't even really start paying attention to journaling or meditating in any aspect until a couple of years ago. I didn't see the significance of it. I didn't understand the importance of it. And once I started doing it, and now that I've done it for a relatively significant amount of time, I can look back and see the progress that I've made, and the way that I'm able to be open and honest with myself, because I think that's an area that a lot of people struggle with, sitting with their thoughts and their feelings and really like sifting through and understanding what's going on the inside, because we tend to focus largely on everything around us, on the external, and we ignore the internal. And this is like journaling and meditation are pretty much the first for any new client that I have sign up for my one-on-one program. Meditation and journaling are like first on the list, because building those and incorporating those into your day-to-day life, as you mentioned earlier, the compound effect, like just doing that, like if you could couple those two, journaling and meditation, and do them for like 6 weeks, one, I could guarantee you're going to feel much better about yourself as a person. But doing it for an extended period of time, you can almost track your progress. Like you can go back and read like your older journal entries, and you can see how you've grown as a person throughout this process. So I really love that you speak so highly of these two things, and you mentioned them as important aspects of the internal shifts you had to make.
Yeah, for sure. And there's just an immense amount of power of having like a calm and collected mind, because just like you said, that then it's so much easier to like stay true to yourself and not lie to yourself. Because if you have constant noise in your head, it's going to be so hard to like dictate what's actually noise and what's like the signal that should act on. So that is definitely something that meditation has helped me with, and it's just an incredible way to start your day, like zoning out a little bit. And if you feel like, oh, I have to do this today, I have to do this today, and then you kind of like just take maybe like 10 to 15 minutes to just sit there in silence and like collect your thoughts and realize, okay, I don't need to stress out about this. I can just be present and do my absolute best in every single task, because then I'm actually going to be able to perform my best work.
I love that. I love that. Just in case any listeners missed that, 10 to 15 minutes a day.
Yeah, for sure.
That's enough. That's not like an extended period of time. That's just a few minutes to just collect your thoughts, sit with your thoughts, and be present. And just that alone.
Exactly. And I know there's going to be quite a few people that are like, yeah, meditation, whatever. And I was thinking exactly the same way. I was like, what is it about? But I'll actually share my motivation to get started, which is quite maybe not shallow is the right word, but basically the reason why I got started with meditation was that I was listening to the Tim Ferriss show, and Tim Ferriss is a pretty famous entrepreneur and best-selling author, and he has a podcast that has like extremely successful people that are with him, like Oprah, Arnold Schwarzenegger, people like that. And 80% of his audience had some type of mental practice, and most of them had some type of meditation practice. So that was really the motivation for me to get started, and that's when I realized like how important and life-changing this habit actually can be.
I love that. The fact that there are these people that are admired by vast percentages of the population, these people that are like at the tip top in whatever space they're in. Like you said, Oprah and Arnold Schwarzenegger, to name a couple. Like those are very, very well-known names. And all these other people on this podcast, and the majority of them incorporate that somehow. That speaks to something. Like there's something to that if it's working. If there's these people, like that's one common denominator between all of them, or between most of them. There's got to be something to that.
Yeah, and that's basically what I realized, that yeah, if all those people are doing this, then I should probably do it as well. And just like I said, you only need a couple of weeks to like really appreciate how life changing it is.
Yeah, I agree. And it doesn't, obviously doing it for an extended period of time, you'll see tremendous benefits, but you'll start to see benefits pretty quickly if you do it consistently and take it seriously and put your intention into it. You'll see the benefits.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is just like overcoming the first days, because I know like my girlfriend really struggles with it, because she's like she finds it annoying that all of these thoughts are popping up, and she's like getting kind of freaked out. And that's like the reason why exactly you need to do it. It's kind of like you got this madness inside of you, and you kind of like need to reorganize it and get some structure going, so you can like have a calm and relaxed mind.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good point. So when you work with your clients, do you focus on these aspects or any other aspects of any like internal shifts that need to be made while they're on this this journey, whether it's weight loss, or just putting on a little extra muscle, or whatever their goals are when they work with you? Do you incorporate some of these strategies with your clients?
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like the main reason people come to me is that they either want to lose weight, they want to build muscle, they want to develop new habits, or build a healthier lifestyle. And what most people think that they will receive is basically training and the nutrition parts, and those are some of my key focuses, of course. But along that, I'm also like making sure to incorporate mindset practices, and I'm also doing it's kind of like a mixture of breathing and acupuncture. So what that does is basically, when you can combine that with affirmations, you're basically like instilling new beliefs into your subconscious. So if a person is overeating, or like constantly struggling to go to the gym, we can kind of like rewire some of their negative beliefs with some positive ones instead. And I really feel like that is one of the key things, because yes, training and nutrition is important, but if our beliefs are not aligned with the changes we're trying to make, it's going to be extremely difficult.
I literally could not agree more. I didn't believe, I don't know if it's necessarily that I didn't believe, I just didn't know. I didn't understand how large the role of the subconscious mind is. And to learn that there was the potential for me to make shifts on my own. Like there are modalities that one could use to reframe these belief systems, and you could do it at your house. Like given like a certain amount of time and energy. Once I realized that, I was like, there's no limit. how far could you take this? Like, you could quite literally completely change your life by doing some of these things.
Yeah, and there's so much power in that, and I really like one analogy that George Pratt uses, and he basically talks about the elephant and the flea. So the elephant being the subconscious mind, and the flea being the conscious mind. So basically, if there's any listeners that don't know, basically our subconscious mind dictates 95% of our actions, and our conscious mind dictates 5% of our actions. So if you're going to try to consciously go train when your entire belief system is that you're not the person that trains, you're a lazy person, you're not worthy of a good looking body, whatever it might be, those 5% of your conscious mind is going to have to battle the unconscious to actually overcome those every single day, every single time you're trying to go to the gym. So that's why there's so much power in actually diving into this and reprogramming it if necessary.
I love that. The elephant and the flea. Whew. Imagine if you're a flea every day trying to battle with an elephant. That's not gonna.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get very far. Oh.
An uphill battle, to say the least.
First, yeah, to say the least. Change direction a little bit and dive into something that you and I talked about recently, and this was you deciding to get into like to take the healthy lifestyle a little bit further and dive into sobriety. And I know that for me personally, when I got sober, it was difficult for me to communicate and like explain why I was doing certain things to people. And I felt like I had to justify my reasoning, and there was a lot of noise, like you mentioned earlier with the meditation. There's like all this, going on in your head. Like there was a lot of that when I decided to get sober. So I wanted to ask you how communication and being vulnerable has played a role in keeping you aligned with this journey of sobriety that you're on right now.
Yeah, for sure. So to give a little bit of a background, I'm a person that I consumed basically a lot of alcohol between the years of me being 18 to 22. So I was doing a lot of partying, having a good time with my friends. There was a point in my life where I was basically drinking 1 or 2 times every single week for pretty much a year, and that is obviously a lot and quite unhealthy in my opinion. And I was feeling pretty terrible that year. I was frequently sick from work. I was struggling with my weight, and I wasn't feeling really great. And this is basically after that I got down to a healthy weight, and then as this lifestyle became progressively more focused towards partying, I started feeling worse, and it felt like I was kind of slipping back again. And that's obviously not something that I wanted to happen. So I kind of looked at looking for ways to start drink less, or kind of isolate myself from that. And that was pretty hard, and I experienced some resistance from people. And I will also add to the fact that I'm a person that has a very hard time having a couple of drinks or having drinks in moderation. So it was very frequent that I blacked out. Sometimes I would wake up with pukes on myself, and not a pretty image. So there were a lot of danger signals, and throughout this time I just felt like my life would be so much better without alcohol in it. And at a certain point, I kind of had to take action on that as well, because I was trying out this thing where I was like, okay, so I'm going to be very cautious how much I drank, and I wasn't really successful with that. And so I simply decided, okay, I'm going cold turkey on this, and that was something that was extremely difficult. And I think the most difficult part was just like overcoming the fact what, or like accepting what people were going to think, because we tend to make it like so much more difficult, or like make it so much bigger than it actually has to be. And yeah, sure, when I broke the news to my friends, they thought I was crazy. Like, are you okay? And like I received so many like challenging thoughts, like, okay, so are you not going to be able to go on vacation with us now? And I had to like really defend myself and my decision. But ultimately, when I explained myself, they fully supported me, because they're yeah they're pretty good friends. And when I explained my reasoning, they totally accepted it. And as time has went by, I've just like looked for ways to communicate my needs without offending other people, because I've noticed that.
Let me pause you real quick.
Yeah,
My mom's landline is ringing, so I'm gonna unplug the phone. We'll pick it back up, and I'll just cut this part out.
yeah.
The most annoying thing ever.
No problem.
Okay, so do you remember where you were at?
I think I was just like talking about how I was communicating, like I was communicating throughout the time I was sober.
Yeah, you said like, you started communicating your own needs.
By the way, just before we continue, these last few minutes, I noticed that your like connection turns red for me. So there's like parts where you freeze up. So do you think there's like any way to fix that, or do you think that's on my end?
Um, I don't know. My Wi-Fi says it's a strong signal.
Ah, okay.
I haven't. You haven't frozen at all, so it should be. I don't know. It should be okay. Is it? Is
Well,
it like
you like
hitting?
froze for 1 or 2 seconds here and there. So hopefully that was just some short term thing.
Okay. Well, let's hope it doesn't continue or pause for any longer. Um, okay, so I'm gonna hop back in and be like, hey guys, technical difficulty, please continue. All right, my friends. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties. Can you pick up where you left off, please? I had to cut you off in the middle of a very important aspect of this conversation, but please feel free to continue.
Yeah, no problem. So I was just talking about like finding ways to like kind of express myself without criticizing or like putting anyone down, and that can actually be extremely difficult. And one great thing that I actually learned throughout the time that I've been in your program is using the word I feel, because there's a lot of strength in I feel, because when we use I feel, we simply like express how certain situations make us feel. We don't criticize other people. We don't judge them. We don't we don't criticize them. We simply express. So, for example, I recently told my friends that in these situations where I used to drink, but I'm no longer drinking, and you guys are like giving me a hard time for being sober, that's really offensive to me. And there's something like internally that just makes me want to leave this party or like go somewhere else. And that was something that was like I was pondering that for weeks before I actually expressed it because I wasn't really sure how to like put that through without offending them. And one thing that really helped me was saying I feel this way and expressing to them I feel the same way when I was drinking with my brother and his friends as I do with you guys when you give me a hard time about this. So I appreciate you guys, but could you please like back it up a little bit because I don't really feel like my decision is being accepted right now. And I think when you present it in that way, like most people are going to be extremely forgiving and understanding.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't want to put on I didn't want to like hype up this like podcast episode and be like, "Oh yeah, my guest is also somebody that's in my program," like I so I'm glad you brought it up so that I didn't have to. Um but the I feel statements, this is another thing, like going back to the beginning where you said a couple small changes can have profound impacts. Just changing the way that you speak or express your feelings by saying I feel rather than coming at somebody and saying like stop doing that, or this makes me feel, or you're making me feel a certain way. When we come at it from a place of I feel whatever it is, like I feel blank because whatever, it takes the pressure off the other person, and you're just simply focusing on the way that you feel rather than placing any responsibility on the other person. They don't feel attacked. They don't feel as though you are blaming them in any way. You're just simply letting them know how you feel. And you even took it a step further, which, like going deeper, like a more encompassing aspect of the I feel is following that up with something that you need, which is like you followed it up with, I need you, my friends, to respect my decision. And when you bring in the I feel statement and then you throw in actually what you need or what you want in addition to that, the chances of you, for one, actually getting what you need skyrocket because you've expressed it. A lot of times we don't express our needs. And there may be some people listening like, oh, like that's not even a big deal. Like they're your friends. They should. I'm not a fan of that word, but your friends should respect your decision if they're your real friends. But if you're coming from a background of like any form of background of codependency or people pleasing, like expressing your needs and telling people how you feel is like the lowest thing on the list of what you want to do because of how others may react to it. And when you get to that place where you feel confident and secure in yourself to where you can express how you feel and then what you need or what you want, it's an absolute game changer because you're now, for one, being authentic, you're being open and honest, and if you keep those feelings bottled up, like had you not expressed these to your friends, my guess is that long term there would have been like some anger and resentment building up inside of you to the point where like maybe you get in like a fight with your friends because they keep giving you a hard time but you never told them it was bothering you, and that feeling just like sits and like festers and builds up, and That's not healthy. And so to just say it, to just say how you feel and what you need, cuts out all this nonsense in the middle and gets you from where you're at to what you want and what you need.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always so much better to just like express what you're thinking and how certain things are making you feel. Because when we're in our own heads going through our daily lives, we tend and like to assume that other people like understand how we're feeling, what our expressions are, what our emotions are, and it's actually extremely difficult to know what other people are thinking and feeling. Like, sure, if someone's angry, we can usually tell that, but when someone like when someone is thinking hard about something, or if they're slightly frustrated, their faces are going to be like extremely similar. So when it comes to like our relationships, whether that's with friends or loved ones, it's just like so much easier just getting out there. At least that has been my experience personally.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting that you brought that up, like the like nonverbal communication, like facial expression. You're right. Like if somebody's like sitting there and they're like overthinking or they're angry, like their faces probably look kind of similar, and it's hard to tell. And we can cut through all of that just simply by expression and verbal communication. Most communication is nonverbal, body language and facial expression and all that, but we can't solely rely on that. And the verbal aspect of it is a key component.
Yeah, for sure.
One that I feel is largely lacking in today's society. Like we communicate all the time, we talk to each other, we we're on the phone or we're on FaceTime or we're hanging out in person, but how often are we actually being honest and expressing how we're feeling in any given moment? Not as often as uh, not as often as would be beneficial for growth and gaining a deeper level of understanding for yourself and for others.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like one of the biggest ones is just like not making assumptions, because that's like all my communication issues have stemmed from like me making some sort assumption, or like thinking that the other person knows exactly the same things that I do, and that's pretty much never the case. So it's like it's so much easier to just like over communicate and like over clarify rather than assuming things.
Right. Yeah. Beautifully put. I love that you mentioned that. So this what we just talked about, it kind of ties into my next question, and you almost answered it already earlier, but saying, like, talking to your friends and expressing the I feel statement and then saying what you need from them, that was essentially you setting boundaries with them. Like, hey guys, like these are my boundaries, like please respect them. And that was going to be my next question, is like, how did boundaries play a role in this in this aspect of your life? And I, for me, like what I picked up from what you were speaking on about that was that you expressing your needs and verbally communicating your boundaries and what you're going to allow and not allow was huge for for I'm sure your like mental well-being and peace of mind, but also for your friends to understand like where you're at in life and the direction that you're going to an extent, and your your feelings about who you are and who your friends are. You didn't come at them in a way where you were attacking them for probably not intentionally crossing your boundaries, but you didn't you didn't come at them in a hostile way. You just expressed like, these are my boundaries, don't cross them, and those boundaries were respected. And That's for a lot of people, that's a difficult place to get to. Did you struggle with that at all? Like getting, I know you said like it took you a few weeks to like talk to your friends about this. Um, was that a difficult conversation for you to have to express yourself and to set those boundaries?
Yeah, for sure. So everything started out with like my friends were going away to one of my friends' summer house, and they asked me to join them. And my main reaction was that I didn't really want to do it because, like, yeah, like going away for an entire weekend, staying up, that doesn't really align with me anymore, and it's extremely difficult to do that without alcohol in your blood, like especially if you're hanging out with people that are drinking. So I just felt like that was going to be a little bit too much, and I didn't really feel like going there with them. So what I did was basically like in the group chat, I was when I was speaking with them, I was basically telling them, yeah, I'll probably come along, but I'm not sure because I wasn't really sure how I was going to put it and like how I was going to express myself because I have some people pleasing tendencies. So like if I just acted on my lower self or whatever you want to call it, I was like, yeah, I'll come along. Of course, guys, I want you guys to be happy and I don't care about my own needs whatsoever. So that was like the initial reaction. But then like my core beliefs and like my higher self is feeling like, okay, so this is probably not something that I want to do. So how can I go about it? And then it was just like a couple of weeks of just like me totally like overthinking this and like struggling. Like, should I make up some excuse? Should I tell the truth? So that was basically what I was going through for 1 week and like occasionally discussing it with my girlfriend. And then what I ultimately did was like, because they were asking me like, are you coming or not, basically. So I called up one of my closest friends and I like honestly and authentically expressed him how I felt about this, that I didn't want to go and why I didn't want to go. So he was like super understanding about that. And then I was having conversations with two other people that were going and pretty much expressing the same thing and the conclusions I draw after talking to my friends. So like, yeah, it would probably be wise to talk to a few of the people at least, or like some of my closest friends that were going. So, and it was one. So one of the people is like the guy that does a lot of banter, likes to put people down, not in a mean way, but it's kind of like a fun way that it hurts a little bit, but like it's kind of how the group function works. So
Hmm.
I was I was outside walking and I like procrastinated making the call to him for like 15 or 20 minutes just because I felt like how uncomfortable this conversation was going to be. But like as I actually called him, it went pretty good. I actually made some communication error, so he kind of like thought that I was attacking him. But when we got that out of the when we got that in the clear, that I was just like expressing how I felt, and when he like understood that, so then it was totally fine. And and afterwards I just felt amazing, because then I authentically expressed how I felt. I didn't go with them. They could have a good trip without me, and maybe I'll join them another time. And that's another big thing with this sobriety is that I kind of like meeting these people on my terms, so to speak. So what I like to do now is just that if my friends invite me to go drinking with them, I'll usually decline because I'm not going to have a good time, or I don't think a single time when I've been out with them sober has been enjoyable for me. So I don't really do that anymore. But if they ask me to play sports with them in the middle of the day and have lunch afterwards, I will be totally down for that because then we can maintain the relationships, we can have a good time, and I don't really feel like I'm sacrificing something. So
Hmm.
That has just been my way to go about it.
I think there's an important thing to note here. It's my belief that a lot of people with people pleasing backgrounds fail to express the way that they feel or what they need because they think that they're going to be abandoned by the person on the other end of it. Like if they don't constantly cater to what other people want, they're going to be alone. And you went through this process of making this pretty major change in your life, which is not the norm by any means. Like the norm is to go out and drink alcohol regularly and go to bars and go on vacations and have drinks, and to go to the opposite end of the spectrum with that, it's going to test you a little bit. And even with this friend, you said like you waited, like you procrastinated on calling him a little bit, and you ended up calling him and the communication didn't go the way you probably would have liked it to at first. But once you worked through all that, your friends are still your friends. And the only thing that's changed is now you see them on your terms. It's not like you had to ruin friendships or cut these people out simply by letting them know what you need. You got what you needed on a personal level and on this level of friendship. And I think it's so important for people to understand that. Sure, there are circumstances where you make some significant changes, and it's time to move on from some former relationship like friendship or even a job. But that doesn't always have to be the case. People can be much more receptive to our needs than we think in our heads. And another thing I wanted to mention, I know that you're familiar with this, but the concept of shadow work and you know identifying what we're avoiding. And like in this instance, like to give a small example, like you were for a short period of time like avoiding this conversation with one of your friends, and in your head you're overthinking it, right? And so like part of the shadow work is this like, what's the worst case scenario if I were to follow through with this thing? And is it as bad, is the worst case scenario as bad as I'm making it out to be in my head? 99% of the time it's not. And just simply by devoting a little bit of energy to like just write that out, like, okay, like what's the worst that could happen? And 9 times out of 10 inside your head you're running through all these crazy hypotheticals and all these crazy scenarios, and it's so far removed from the reality of the situation that it gets distorted into something that it's not. And if we can just take a direct path to like, okay, this is what I need to be doing and I'm not doing it, so like boom, I'm just going to do it. And it eliminates all of the hypotheticals and all the assumptions and all of the anxiety and the stress that one goes through in those situations where you're like, if like for me, like I've had situations where I'm like avoiding something I need to be doing, and I'll be up and I'll be laying in my bed at night and I'm tossing and turning for hours, just like running through like hypothetical scenarios of like, oh, if I do this, this person's gonna react in this way, or they're gonna say this, and then how am I gonna respond to that? And I'm like, none of this is even real. Like this is just me in my head. Like, what am I doing? I'll just cool. Like, I don't like to I don't like to toss and turn at night and like not be able to sleep because I'm constantly overthinking everything. So like, what's the way around that? Cool. I'm just going to act, and I'm just going to say how I feel and what I need. And let the chips fall how they may. And in your example, in this situation you have with your friends, like it worked out, it sounds like pretty near perfectly for you, like where you are able to set those boundaries. You still have your friends, you see them on your terms, you're still able to enjoy their company, and you get the like that personal satisfaction of sticking to what you said you were going to do.
Yeah, and just like you said, like when you're laying in bed, like thinking about all these scenarios, like after that conversation, I could just like check that off the list and let that go out of my system, so I could actually like go back to having peace of mind, just like we talked about in meditation. So obviously
Mm.
that wasn't a meditation session, but it did exactly the same thing to my mind. Like having that conversation, I was like, whew. Just like I said, like I procrastinated having that conversation for like 15 or 20 minutes just because it felt like so difficult. And just like you said, I was going through like all the worst case scenarios and like, what if this happens? What if this happens? And then I just like kind of accepted the fact, okay, so I thought about what's the actual worst thing that could happen. And I kind of like made peace with it. Okay, so that could happen. It's not that likely, but it actually could happen. And when I made a call, it didn't happen, and I could go on with my life. And now I'm just like, I'm having peace of mind. I have expressed myself. I felt seen and heard. So for the rest of that walk, I was just like having a smile on my face, and then I slept like a baby afterwards. So
Yes, that alone, just that quality of sleep improvement. Whew. Oh, that's good stuff. So you mentioned like you've like talked with your girlfriend about some of these aspects where you were struggling and trying to work through your thoughts and your feelings by kind of bouncing them off of her and getting her input. How I mean, I think it's a given that most people would accept the fact that communication is very important in romantic relationships. Are your levels of communication with your girlfriend, are they at a place where they've created like a beneficial effect in your relationship, like because you live together, so this aspect of communication and boundaries, like how do those play a role in your day-to-day life while you're living with your significant other?
yeah, so I think that's like extremely crucial towards the relationship, and it has kind of like when we moved in together in the beginning of this year, we kind of like got challenged because our communication kind of like had to get to that next level now that we were living together. Because especially for us two, I would assume, because we're people that recharge when we're alone. So we really like have to respect each other's energy and give ourselves like time to recharge. So maybe I'll go out on a walk and I let her have the house by herself so she can kind of like recharge and I get to recharge. So a huge one has just like been expressing each other's needs and like, okay, honey, I'm feeling low. I'm struggling to think clear right now. I just need like 1 hour by myself. Could you give me that? So that would be a huge one, like going back to expressing one's needs and just finding ways to like respect and listen to the other person.
Hmm. I love that you mentioned that you have to listen also. That's another part of communication that gets often looked over.
Yeah.
Listening, like communication is not just like it's my way or the highway. Like you have to, especially in the situation where you're living with your girlfriend, there has to be some forms of compromise, and you have to, it's, you're not going to get everything that you want and everything that you need 24/7, because you now have an additional person in this unit. And it's like a crucial aspect of maintaining a healthy relationship and those types of situations, is to be able to listen to the other person's needs the same way that you're expressing your needs to them and they listen to you. You have to be willing to listen to them as well and to work with them so that you can both get what you need. And that's tough, that's where you got to really, rein in your ego and be like, okay, like it's not all about me all the time. It's like, I need to, like, if she's respecting my needs, I need to respect her needs. And it's tough to do that sometimes, but it seems as though you've had this foundation of years of, the compound effect, essentially, of you building all these things and improving your quality of life, different aspects of your life. You also work with clients and help them do the same. And so it seems like you have a very solid foundation, a baseline of where you're at and where you want to go. And you chose to bring your girlfriend along with you. Like, you guys both made that decision to join together. And so that's, aspect that gets lost in relationships. It's like, this is like, you both choose to be there. And so how can you, like, with that in mind, what's the best way to go about it? And in my opinion, the best way to go about it is to have open communication, express your needs, and listen. And I'm very glad that you brought that up, the listening aspect.
Yeah, for sure, and that's definitely a life changer because we were talking about like how difficult it's actually is to understand each other, and it can be like extremely hard to like make adjustments out of certain phases and stuff like that. So, for example, yesterday, when I came home from the gym, I noticed that she was feeling pretty down. She was very like short in the voice, in her voice. So obviously something was wrong, and after like trying to get her to open up about it, I realized that okay, she probably doesn't want to talk about it. So I just asked her, do you want to talk about this, or do you just need some time for yourself? And she said she needs some time for herself, and I left her alone for like half an hour, and then everything was fine after that. So listening is huge, just like you said.
Yeah. And sometimes it really is that simple. Like, again, like it all just ties back to like, what do we need? Like, you asked her, like, what do you need right now? Do you want to talk, or do you want me to like leave you alone for a bit? It cuts out, like, cool, like then you're able to give her what she needs, and you're both better off in the long run for it, because she knows that you are empathetic to her situation, you're understanding of where she's at, and like that just reaffirms the fact that like you can be comfortable initiating these conversations and asking without any sort of repercussions. And it's I'm glad that you're at a point in your relationship where you and your girlfriend are able to communicate like that, because there are many people who never get to that point, who live together in constant turmoil, and they never talk about anything. And there's this book that I'm reading, and I've mentioned it before, 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. And one of the examples that he gives in one of the chapters of this book is, a wife finds out that her husband is cheating, and she starts, running through these hypothetical scenarios in her head, like, how could he do that to me? Like, and she starts playing out these ideas, and then she starts questioning herself, like, what did I do to make him do that? And Jordan Peterson brings it back to like a very simple level where, like, he gives the example of this children's story of uh, the dragon in the room. I don't know if that's the exact name, but basically there's this child in this house, and there's a dragon in his bedroom, like a little baby dragon. And he tells his mom, there's a dragon. And he sees the dragon. Where are we at here?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, my video cut out. Did it cut out for you too?
Yeah, sadly.
Okay. Let me see if I can. What's the last thing you heard?
You were talking about the dragon, a baby talking to her mom, like, "Look, mommy, there's a dragon in the room," or something like that.
Okay. So there's this dragon in the room, and the mom doesn't believe it. She ignores that there's a dragon in the room. And because the dragon is ignored, it grows and grows and grows and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it ends up taking up the entire house, and then it ends up taking the house. The dragon is real, right? The mom just doesn't want to believe it. And the dad comes home, and where his house was is just like an empty plot of land. And the kid says, "Mom, look, like I told you, the dragon is real." And it was to the point where the mom could no longer ignore that the dragon was real, because the dragon ended up taking the house.
Yeah.
Right? And and the mom like finally admits that the dragon is real. And then the dragon shrinks. The house goes back to where it was. And eventually the dragon disappears. And I'm sure that I totally butchered that story, but the meaning behind it is that if things go unsaid, if things go ignored, little by little, they grow. Like, as I think I mentioned it before, like that feeling starts to build inside of you, that resentment,
Yeah.
that anger. And the example in the book of the woman that gets cheated on by her husband, like that most likely started years earlier by a need not being met or something not being said. And then it just builds and builds slowly. And rather than address it, it was ignored and swept under the rug. Oh, it's no big deal. No, we don't need to talk about that. Like, those things build up, and they can cause a massive amount of wreckage if not addressed and left to just build behind the scenes while it's swept under the rug. And it's great that even on such a seemingly small level as you asking your girlfriend, like, do you want to talk or do you want me to leave you alone? Like, on the surface, maybe that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal. And that'll play a role in you keeping that relationship in a healthy space moving forward in the future, because you're able to talk about things. You don't just sweep things under the rug. Like, you could have come home, right, and like she's feeling off and you're having a great day, and you're like, what's wrong with you? Like, like in like an aggressive way, and you're like, oh, like you're killing my vibe, like I'm gonna leave, like it could, like it very easily could go that way. And
Yeah.
that over an extended period of time is going to lead to something destructive and detrimental. But because you just like, okay, like, let me empathize with where she's at, let me listen to what she needs, and then honor that, and boom, 30 minutes later, you're good. And
Yeah, I think that's a huge one, and I actually love your dragon analogy because that's like one of the most successful marriages has in common is that they sort those things out before they go to sleep, or like as they're laying in bed, if you can kind of like feel the tension, they
mhm,
actually like sort that shit out before they fall asleep, and that really makes all the difference because I've had so many situations back at my old job where it was like you're saying, like I was kind of feeling some tension, and I was like, yeah, I'll probably be able to get over this. So you can like feel it is like building up inside of you, like getting bigger and bigger, and like as each day go by, and then you're like, let's say a week has gone by, and you're feeling it taking, you feel like it's taking over you. So either you're going to explode, or either you're just like going to resent it further. Just like I said, the dragon keeps building, and whew, that's just such a devastating place to be. So we definitely have to be aware of that before they escalate.
yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. Um, well, my friend, these are all that's all the questions that I had prepared for this. I really appreciate you taking your time to come on here and share your stories and your beliefs and your thoughts. And if one wanted to get in contact with you and they want to go through some form of lifestyle transformation, where can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you so much for bringing me on. Had a blast talking to you again. And if anyone wants to learn more about me, they can find me at erikssonunlimited.com. They can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Eriksson Unlimited. So that's
Awesome.
the best place to find me.
And my man just got his website set up. It looks professional. It's the most I don't know. I just love your branding style. Like it's very enticing and welcoming. And for anyone that wants to check out his Instagram or his Facebook, the content is very, what's the right word to describe this? He has a way of breaking down seemingly complex topics in a very straightforward way that's very easy to understand. So anything that he's mentioned about his own personal journey, anything he's been through, these things that he's had to overcome in his life, like you can just go through and find some of his Instagram posts, and it's just broken down in a way that's so easy to understand. And you do the same talking in person, so it's awesome. I love what you do, and I appreciate you coming on here to share, how you got in to this journey that you're on, and the importance of the different aspects that we talked about. So thank you again for taking the time to be here, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Nick. You're making me blush. I really appreciate the kind words.
Of course, my friend. All right, everybody. Signing out. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Comeback Journey podcast. We drop new episodes every week, so if you've listened this far, make sure to subscribe so that you can catch new episodes as soon as they drop. If you've been part of the tribe for a little while and truly resonate with my messages and want to support us, the best thing you could do would be to leave a review on our podcast. This ensures that the Comeback Journey will be shown to more people and that it will be discovered by those in need. Thank you all for the continued support, and I'll see you next time.